The Huntsman of Adamos, the Huntsman's Honor, Chapter 14. When War Ends. They were almost to the palace when a hooded figure tackled Serapha and dragged her into a darkened alleyway. Assassin Sangreal wove a shadow wall, and they vanished from sight, invisible to any onlooker. Demona? Are you insane, sister? Why would you return here? She is looking for you. The priestess, who looked remarkably like Serapha, demanded. I had to come. They have my friend's brother. He's a huntsman. Do you know where they've taken him? Serapha begged. Yes, grandmother is keeping him in her glass ring. The huntsman refuses to yield, and he can resist her magic. It is driving her crazy. I'll help you get him out, but you have to leave. Grandfather is looking for you, for her. Father refused to tell them where you were. They think you might be dead, and unless you want to be the next host of the Queen, you need to keep it that way, Demona insisted, as Serapha looked terrified. When Serapha shuddered, Yurieth reached out for her on instinct, then stopped before he smudged her body paint. You are her sister? Come with us. We will protect you. I am Yurieth, and this is Regis, and Assassin Novice Riel, my princess. Lying as he bowed, Sangreal interrupted. My soul and my blood serve you and your sister. You are of the Brotherhood. Demona looked shocked. My lady, Assassin Riel wants to end the war as we do. Yurieth corrected himself, using the name Sangreal gave the princess. Princess Demona nodded, then looked at Yurieth carefully, turning to her sister with wide eyes. He's your soul half? What Ivania said was true? Yes, sister. Come away with us. Serapha took her hand. We don't have to be what Mother was bred for us to be. But what about Father? He loved Mother. He loves us. We can't leave him here. Grandmother will kill him, Demona demanded, horrified. But Serapha could only shake her head sadly. I don't think we can save him. Help me do the right thing, Demona. Then escape with me to a better life. Demona looked between the four of them, then nodded her head rapidly. Grandmother and grandfather are hearing petitions in the throne room until the darkest hour. Then we have the sacrifices. Afterward, they will visit the prisoner. She goes in and tortures him while grandfather watches. We have to get there before they go to the temple. If I'm not present for the sacrifices, well, you know what happens and what they will do to Father. Serapha reached up, and her fingertips almost touched her sister's face, but didn't. Is that what happened to your eye and lip? Demona closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of her sister's magic. Regis and Yurieth noticed for the first time Demona's face looked swollen under her face paint. Sangreal revealed no emotion, because priestesses were often abused. I wasn't paying attention. I was punished. Please, Serapha. Father is in the dungeon. He fought with grandfather when he wanted you. We are trying to stop all this, but Uncle Lazarif betrayed him, and his allies scattered. Come, we will rescue the huntsman. Then we have to get you away from here. I don't want you to become her. Yurieth, Regis, can you take our father with you before they kill him? My lady, we need to save the huntsman first, but perhaps we can aid you and your father in escaping, Regis offered. Princess of Shadows, where is the fourth prince? Sangreal inquired. He is in the Cavern of Tears, to be bled. Demona seemed to choke. Please believe me, we just want to stop the war. Sangreal bowed. I shall retrieve him, my princess. Then he vanished with a vibration of shadows. Demona led them out of the alley. She and Serapha walked, side by side, heads held high and aloof. No one looked at them twice, and they went right up to the palace, into the main hall, before turning left to go up a flight of stairs. Several hallways and stairways later, they went into a large room that had a glass ring in the center. Yurieth could see Yurieth inside, and it was all he could do to make himself stand behind Serapha as he was supposed to. Serapha walked up to the guard closest to the wall. We are here to take this Etherian dog to the temple. It is time to feed his soul to the devouring shadow. Demona walked along the wall, trailing her fingers on it as she peered through it. It's a shame grandmother won't let us play with him. He's very beautifully made. True, sister, but his blood will burn the same as anyone else's, Serapha said in a bored voice. Demona hummed in acknowledgement, then added wistfully, maybe she'll give us his body after. Necromancy works for a few hours. Princesses, the queen has said nothing about this to me. The prisoner is to be held alive until she is finished with him, the head warrior announced nervously. You dare assume our grandmother needs to inform you of her choices before her own granddaughters? Do you know who we are? Serapha hissed. Who we will be? Demona added just as angrily. She turned to Regis. Remove his head. Regis did it without hesitation. Anyone else? Serapha snapped. No one spoke or even looked at them. Then get out. As soon as they were gone, Serapha put her hand on the glass, and it rippled like water. Demona urged her, Hurry, sister. You know those cowards will go straight to grandfather. I'll tell him we want to seduce the huntsman for ourselves if he comes. Serapha nodded and went through. Yurieth? Yurieth turned slowly over. He was weak because he had been beaten, cut, and bled by the Dark Queen for the last 3 days. She put her hand on his shoulder and breathed out, pushing her power into him, healing and restoring him as she could. Suddenly, she glanced at the wall, horrified, before her expression became blank. In a low voice, she whispered as she stroked his hair, Oh no, my grandfather's here. You have to get away before they kill you. Too late. Serapha's head tipped as though she was listening, while she murmured, Demona is telling him I'm trying to trick you into believing we are going to help you escape, because we want you for ourselves. She sighed in relief, then murmured, He's going to let us have you to see which of us can seduce you. Don't worry, We'll sneak into one of the bedrooms where Yurieth and Regis are waiting, then escape. Pretend to be weak." The glass rippled and Demona stepped in. "Hurry, sister, while the guards are changing." "Who are you, and where are you taking me?" Yurieth demanded loudly. "To the escape tunnel through the temple. Please, Huntsman, our people need your people to save us." Demona answered convincingly, but she glanced at the glass wall. Yurieth leaned on both Demona and Serapha as they walked out. No one was beyond the glass wall or in the hall. "Can I get some clothing?" Yurieth asked softly as they turned a corner. He was very conscious that he had only a bedsheet tied around his waist. "You won't need it, my huntsman," the Dark Queen announced. Demona muttered a curse, and Serapha seemed to shrink on herself. "Oh, granddaughters, I am so disappointed that you would steal my prize from me. But I will forgive you. It seems Lord Yurieth does not find me beautiful. Soon he will have one of you." "Seize them all and take them to the temple," the Queen ordered. "Tonight you will find out which the Dark Queen chose and which shall give up her blood to make the indwelling permanent." "Let them go. Kill me instead," Yurieth demanded. "Don't worry, my lovely huntsman. Your soul will not be long behind them, but I will be keeping your body for my lord, since my granddaughters seem to fancy you." The Dark Queen smiled malevolently. "Bring them." "Don't fight them," Demona whispered. Yurieth, Serapha, and Demona were marched to the temple. King Apollyon was waiting with his 2 sons. "Where's our father?" Demona demanded. Apollyon slapped her before grabbing her chin. "Insolent girl! My incompetent son does not deserve to be here for the birth of the next Dark Queen. Personally, I'm glad she chose your sister. Queen Serapha has such a seductive sound, better than Queen Diona, and she has always been the more submissive." "Shadows take you," Demona cursed, and he laughed in a cold, cruel way. "After you, granddaughter." He forced her to kiss him. As the guards held her arms behind her, he jerked back when she bit him. Smirking, she licked his black blood off her lips. "Since you like blood so much, you will bleed." He glared at Demona, then pointed at Serapha. "Bind her to the altar." The Dark Queen appeared, wearing nothing but her body paint, and laid down on the altar. Serapha was chained by the waist next to her grandmother. "Demona!" Serapha screamed for her sister as Demona was dragged toward the blood altar. The magical beauty faded away, and all could see Queen Babylonia for what she truly was, a hideous, decrepit creature. His eyes were solid black and eerily empty as King Apollyon turned to Yurieth, who was forced to his knees. "Some day soon, huntsman, I will enjoy wearing your body for my own." While his back was turned, black and red flames exploded around Demona, throwing the guards away from her. Demona threw her sister something as a wall of mage fire engulfed Serapha and Queen Baelonia. Serapha glowed golden with healer's magic and plunged a sacrificial blade into their mother's chest. Dark magic streamed up from the queen's ancient body like a geyser. The Dark Queen screamed inhumanly and thrashed as the sisters focused their magic upon her. Baelonia jerked away from Serapha and launched herself at Demona. Skeletal hands seized Demona by the throat as Serapha struggled to free herself. Trapped, Serapha pulled at the chain, trying to reach them. "Sister!" Demona shook her head, croaking, "Don't!" A man shouted, "Serapha, don't touch her, or it will go into you. Let your sister fight her." "Bend down," Yurieth shouted to his mind, and Yurieth ducked as a pair of arrows flew over his head, killing the berserker warriors who held him. "Huntsman!" Sangreal yelled to him. A huntsman's knife and a war axe flew toward Yurieth. He leaped and caught them before turning to attack Apollyon. The blood mages and sirens rushed to aid their king and queen. Suddenly, there were several armed mages and sirens fighting against the king and queen's loyal ones. As the battle for the kingdom raged, a priestess freed Serapha, while Yurieth fought the fifth prince, Sheolin. The princess's father, Lucif, fought his twin, third prince, Lazarus. Regis and Sangreal fought the berserkers. Soon the king of Seleucia lay dead on the floor, with something that looked like tar oozing from his wounds. His body had dozens of deep gashes where Yurieth had hacked and partially dismembered it. After the king fell, the huntsman attacked the third prince to protect the fourth prince, who had been knocked down the temple steps. In moments, Lazarus' head lay at Yurieth's feet. Sheolin rushed through the shimmering archway behind the altar rather than surrender to Yurieth as the queen's loyalists were overcome. Yurieth started after him, but a priest seized his arm. "Don't follow him, Aetherian, or your soul will be consumed." There was a pile of ash and bone next to the sisters. Serapha was cradling a convulsing Demona in her arms. Demona's eyes were flickering back and forth between black and cranberry. Placing his palms on her shoulders, Yurieth poured his magic into her. "Don't die, sister. Don't give up. Reach for the light. I'm here." "Daughters," Lucif stepped forward, but Regis held up his hand. "Please, Prince Lucif. Lady Serapha has discovered her true magic as a healer of the light. Let them save your elder daughter." Suddenly, Demona sagged, and when she opened her eyes, they looked their normal cranberry color. "She didn't want me," Demona sobbed in relief. Serapha hugged her, crying happily, "Thank the light." Lucif knelt and held his daughter. "We did it. The kingdom is saved." A few moments later, he stood to face the three Aetherian warriors. "Huntsman, protector, I cannot thank you enough for saving my daughters and my people. I am fourth Prince Lucif of the House of the Fallen Star, and I surrender myself to you. Please, don't punish my people for what my parents have done." Flyers roared overhead as Aetherians filled the city. Your petition will be considered. Yurieth looked around at those he killed, then back to the prince. I am sorry I killed your brother tonight. The other night I saw him hurt Demona in this very place. I guess I was avenging her. Thank you, for I would have killed him myself after I escaped prison. Lucif bowed his head. I never wanted this for either of them. I loved their mother. She taught me another way, but we had to obey or be bled to death for the power in our blood. Our nightmare is over, thanks to you. Regis turned as his father walked up the steps, sharing all that had happened between their minds. Prince Lucif, this is the guardian Regulus of the House of Adamos. Regulus held out his arm in the traditional greeting, and Lucif took it. Thank you for fighting so hard to save our people, Guardian Regulus. It is my duty and my honor as an Etherian to save our Zelusian brothers, Regulus responded. And thank you for sending us detailed schematics of the defenses around the temple city. I became a traitor to save my people and my children, but it was worth it, Lucif declared. Yurieth eyed him covertly. The huntsman did not know if he believed the Zelusian prince, or if his aura was simply too polluted to read after centuries of using blood magic. He hoped Prince Lucif was genuinely changed. He was the last male heir to his kingdom's throne. The huntsman Yurieth and protector Yurieth of the House of Adamos, and guardian Regulus and huntsman Regis of the House of Adamos, knelt before King Xerxes of Etheria as he placed a sash of honor around their necks. All but a small force left to guard the techs, builders, and healers, helping the Zelusians repair their world, had returned to Etheria. Regis and Seamus would be running the school for huntsmen and training at the only remaining King's Academy. Prince Lucif gave them each an award for duty beyond blood, the highest honor a Zelusian warrior could receive, and promised them all estates on the new Zelusia. At the celebration, it seemed like every female from 2 planets was approaching the heroes who ended the war. But Yurieth only had eyes for Serapha. She was the only one he danced with. Yurieth stayed because it was his duty, but the space where his heart had beat once had him longing for the forest of his home, while he watched his brother and his sealed ones dancing. Serapha's father had not realized that Yurieth and Serapha were soul halves, and he assumed his youngest was just infatuated with the Etherian hero who had saved her when their mountainous state was attacked. Princess Demona extracted Yurieth from an eligible royal lady. Excuse me, Lord Yurieth. My father wishes to speak to you. I'm sorry, Lady Kalina. Please pardon the interruption. Yurieth bowed and followed Demona out onto a balcony. Where is your father? Demona laughed. I have no idea. But you looked like you needed rescuing, and honestly, I needed to get out of that party. She leaned forward and looked down at the gardens. It is so beautiful here. Would my lady like to see the royal gardens up close? He asked chivalrously. She nodded, then squeaked in surprise when he lifted her up in his arms like a bride. He jumped from the balcony. Then he set her back on her feet on a marble path. This way, my lady. Together they wandered through the gardens. Demona stopping to touch and smell many of the flowers. Neither spoke until they came to one of the many fountains. What will you do now that the war is over, my lord? She had a dusting of pollen on the tip of her nose from smelling flowers. He reached up and brushed it off with his index finger, holding it up for her to see. I do not know, but I feel you might have a calling as a honeybee, my princess. She laughed, and it was a beautiful sound. I can see why my sister loves your brother so much. Be my friend. Teach me about your world, your people, so I can go home and teach mine how to live in light and love. I will do my best, Yurieth promised. The end, chapter 14. The next chapter is 15, The Arrival. Thank you for listening.